12 times royal inbreeding had disastrous consequences. You may be shocked to hear this, but inbreeding used to be very common in the British royal family. To keep power and money in the bloodline, marriages were often established with close relatives. However, this strategic move often had disastrous consequences. These consequences could last for generations, span across entire continents, and even influence major historical events. Number 1. Leopold, the Duke of Albany. Queen Victoria of England and her husband Prince Albert were first cousins. Research shows that their offspring were affected by the impacts of inbreeding. The main consequence was a rare disorder called hemophilia, which prevents blood from clotting and can result in excessive bleeding. The disorder is nicknamed the royal disease, and after watching this video, you will know exactly why. One of their children, Leopold, the Duke of Albany, suffered from the disorder. He died at the age of 30 from blood loss after he slipped and fell. Number 2. Prince Friedrich. While Queen Victoria and Prince Albert themselves did not have any signs of the rare disorder, they did have the recessive genes that caused hemophilia. This means that the Queen passed on this trait to her children and even grandchildren, despite not suffering from the disorder herself. In addition to Queen Victoria's son, 5 of her grandchildren died from complications caused by hemophilia. Queen Victoria's daughter, Princess Alice, carried the gene and passed it on to 3 of her children. One of them, Prince Friedrich, died when he was only 2 years old. Similar to Leopold, he also fell, and as a result, he had internal bleeding, which he didn't recover from due to hemophilia. He was Alice's favorite son, and tragedy struck her after his death. Number 3. King George III. King George III was another British monarch who was a product of inbreeding. He was an ancestor of Queen Victoria and was leading England when they lost their American colonies. He is believed to have suffered from either bipolar disorder or porphyria, a disease causing blue urine and insanity. In addition, he suffered from skin conditions. He was known for having manic episodes, during which he would talk until he began foaming at his mouth. The episodes even changed the manner in which he would write. Some experts even blame his mental illness for the loss of the British colonies in America during the start of the American Revolution. Number 4. Kaiser Wilhelm II. This one might surprise you. The impact of the royal family's inbreeding was not limited to the British Isles. Since there was intermarriage amongst European royals, inherited diseases often spread throughout the continent. Queen Victoria's daughters were married into other royal houses, spreading her disorder far and wide. Members of the German royal line descended from both Queen Victoria and King George III. Thus, the inherited problems propped up in the German House of Hohenzollern. Kaiser Wilhelm II was considered to be a product of these inherited illnesses. A courtier by the name of Reginald Brett confided to King Edward VII that he was sure the taint of George was in his blood. It may have even influenced his behavior during the start of World War I. Some modern historians think that inbreeding may have caused some of the greatest atrocities of the 20th century. Number 5. Princess Charlotte. Kaiser Wilhelm II had a sister, and she seemed to be just as affected by the inherent genetics she got through her grandmother. Princess Charlotte was known for being ill-tempered, a heavy smoker, and a drinker. Most of all, she was known for her notorious gossip. It was widely believed that she was responsible for causing controversy with a series of scandalous letters. The letters were anonymously circulated in 1891, and they exposed some of the Berlin elite's most private and disastrous secrets. The letters also contained royal photographs, which were defiled by lewd illustrations. The princess was afflicted with new mutations of the various ailments she inherited. She suffered from constant abdominal pain and persistent facial blisters, and her urine was dark red throughout her life. While no diagnosis was made, another strain of porphyria was likely responsible. Number 6. Princess Feodora. Princess Feodora of Saxe-Meiningen was the daughter of Princess Charlotte. She was also impacted by her family's genetic legacy, as Charlotte's unnamed and incurable condition was passed on to her. Feodora lived a miserable life. Her mother was barely at home, as she preferred to travel. She also suffered from ill health for most of her adulthood. She had no children of her own, so thankfully, the new mutant form of porphyria was not passed on to the next generation. Number 7. Prince Henry of Prussia. Not all of Queen Victoria's descendants in Germany got to make it to adulthood. Prince Henry was descended from Queen Victoria through both his mother and father, as his parents were first cousins. At only the age of 4, he had a fall. The playful prince climbed onto a chair and then the table. He stumbled while coming down and fell head first. He experienced a brain hemorrhage, so despite surviving for a few hours, he died the following day. The doctor later explained that the fall was not that bad, and had he not been a hemophiliac due to his genetics, he would have survived. Number 8. Alexei Romanov. Believe it or not, Queen Victoria's descendants spread as far as Russia. One of Queen Victoria's great-grandsons, Alexei Romanov, was the last Disastrous, which means he was the heir apparent to the throne of the Russian Empire. The heir inherited the hemophilia condition from Queen Victoria, and his life was threatened by the frequent bleeding he had as a result of this disorder. His mother even ended up employing Rasputin for help, despite the ruling class disapproving of him due to his alcoholism and promiscuity. Rasputin ended up becoming a divisive figure in Russia, seen by some as a visionary and by others as a charlatan. Despite Alexei suffering a lot from the disease, he didn't die from it. His death came due to being murdered, along with the Romanov family, by Bolshevik revolutionaries. Number 9. Habsburg, Philip II of Spain, and Mary I of England. You might have heard of Bloody Mary. Queen Mary I was the Queen of England and Ireland. She later became the Queen of Spain and the Habsburg dominions, as she was married to King Philip II of Spain. Mary and Philip were first cousins once removed, which shows the extent of intermarriages that were common amongst royal families in Europe. While her marriage with the King of Spain produced no children, she had a false pregnancy where it was feared she might die from childbirth. She had the symptoms but never gave birth. Women who have been through inbreeding may have a higher risk of false pregnancies. It's not only that King Philip of Spain was her cousin once removed, but the Habsburgs were known for centuries of inbreeding. Researchers who studied the Habsburg family found out that out of 502 pregnancies, there were 93 infant deaths. Number 10. Vincent Tremeton. The impact of King George III and Queen Victoria's genetics continued well into the 20th century. Rupert Cambridge, later changed to Vincent Tremeton, was an English-born great-grandson of the Queen. His father, Prince Alexander of Teck, was the great-grandson of King George III. With this royal lineage, it is not surprising that Vincent Tremeton also faced some of the consequences associated with inbreeding. On April 25, 1928, he was in a car crash in France. He suffered from intracerebral hemorrhage after his car hit a tree and overturned. Vincent was taken to a hospital with a slight fracture in the skull. Due to internal bleeding caused by his genetic disorder, he never regained consciousness from the relatively minor injury. He passed away in the hospital 2 weeks later. Number 11. Prince Waldemar of Prussia. The latest victim of the royal family's genetic defects was none other than Prince Waldemar of Prussia. Another carrier of the hemophilia mutation, the prince died in a clinic in Tutzing, Germany, due to a lack of blood transfusion facilities. Just before his death, he and his wife were actually fleeing a Russian advance, which led them to Tutzing. He received one last blood transfusion, but the next day, the US Army overran the area and diverted all medical supplies to nearby concentration camp victims. As a result, the doctor was not able to treat Prince Waldemar. Number 12. Alfonso, Prince of Asturias. For our final example, let's now go south to Spain. The royal family's descendants truly did span the entire continent. Prince Alfonso's mother, Victoria Eugenie of Battenberg, was the youngest granddaughter of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Through her, Alfonso inherited the genetic disorder hemophilia. The prince had a car crash, leading to an early death at the age of 31. He only had minor injuries, like the many other examples we have seen. However, his hemophilia led to fatal internal bleeding. That's all we have for today's video. How do you feel about inbreeding within the royal family historically? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.